His throne, my redemption. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 2. Chapter 14. Zade sat in the comfort of his office, hand fisted beneath his chin in deep thought. He missed her already, the beautiful redhead who had stolen his heart 3 nights ago. The prominent and intense emotions she'd made him feel felt fresh in his mind, and her scent, the mixture of earthy and floral, still lived along the rim of his nostrils. She smelled like heaven and hell in one, a scent that calmed and tempted him at the same time. A scent of pine trees and lotus flowers, a marvelous combination that had his heart in knots that night. As soon as she'd walked in, his wolf was at the edge, jealous of the other eyes that stared at her celestial face and the constant and alluring sway of her hips. They wanted her, but he was glad she'd been entrusted to him by the goddess of the moon. His mate, the woman he'd been waiting 27 years for, he'd searched high and low, and after all these years of declining that Pax advances for an alliance, finally agreeing had landed him a jackpot. The night they came with the contract, he'd planned to turn them down, but that captivating scent that lingered on the weapon box was what had his wolf rolling straight onto its back. The word mate had bombarded his mind, and in order to meet her, that contract, he'd signed it and asked the Gamma about who had held the box before him. He called a whole lot of names, but hers stood out the most, well, not if he considered the fact that it was the only feminine name called. He'd inquired about her, learning of her full name and her position. He'd also learned that she was supposed to have accompanied them, but because of unpredictable and personal events, she could no longer make it. It had angered him, the fact that he'd finally found his mate and couldn't see her, but his anger had been why the beta proposed a party, and that was a marvelous idea. His usual color was black, but he'd tried on several others, including pink, just to impress her. His beta, Dante, was the one who told him to take them off and settle for black because he looked like a clown in colored. Seeing her in dark green that night and not pink or red colors that women mostly loved made him happy. He chose a black suit with a white undershirt. And many other things made him happy as well, the sweet sound of her voice that had massaged his ears, as well as the sweet taste of her mouth when he'd kissed her. She tasted like dark chocolate, bitter and sweet at the same time. What made him tempted to destroy the whole place though was the fact that she'd previously been marked by a man who still seemed to have feelings for her. He'd seen the way that weak and audacious Alpha had been looking at her when she was with him. It was a look of jealousy that made his wolf want to let loose, and the fact that she seemed jealous of him too made it even worse. She was his mate, and she hadn't even noticed it. Why? Or was she ignoring the blatant pull because she was still too invested in her ex? Whatever it was, it did not make him happy. Whether she wanted him or not, he'd claim her, for she was his. Her name was written in his book and his in hers. There was nothing she could do to fight fate, especially when Zade would make sure to put up a stronger fight. Dropping his hand from beneath his chin, he looked up when somebody knocked on his door. "Come in," he calmly told them, despite the rough waves that roared within him. The door was pushed open after that, revealing the messenger he'd sent out, an Omega that was small and fast with a nose that could send out any shortcut, Dante's mate. "Speak, Rachel." He was reluctant at first, he'd even said no, but the threat you sent me with worked. He agreed, but only 2 persons can accompany you in for 1 week. Zade smirked, clicking his tongue. "All right, Tell Dante and Frederick to pack their bags, that is all, you may go." He ushered her towards the door and without another word she left. Zade tapped his desk, his heart churning in glee. Even his wolf was in a good mood. He'd told Quinn that he'd see her again before he left, and he'd meant it. Immediately after arriving back home from the party, he'd called for Rachel and sent her out with a proposal. Using a clause from the contract he'd signed as threat, he'd found a way to crawl back into Alpha Jeovanni's pack. Clause 1, 2. During the duration of this agreement, our packs will be considered one. Each pack is now a shelter for the other, and visitation is not limited, whether it be for protection or leisure. If he'd disagreed, then that would be a breach of contract, which was why he didn't. The smirk on Zade's lips widened as he stood to his feet. It was time to pack. He had a vacation to go on and a maid to claim. He'd waited too long for her to watch her fall deeper and deeper for another man. 9 years is a long time, so much time had already gone to waste. He could not waste any more. Quinn sat in Gio's office, looking through the heap of paperwork that Cannon just brought in. It's been 5 days since the night of the party, and during these 5 days, a lot has happened. The farmers that had hated her apologized sincerely in front of her. They'd gotten down on their knees, thanking her for saving them. They'd even confessed to regretting not trusting her and bringing her rotten food. Now her house was full of food, so much so, that she didn't even have space to put them. However, something else happened. 5 nights ago, she hadn't just attended a party, she'd aggressively told Gio off, and since then, he barely said a word to her when she came to his office. He only spoke to her when he really had to, if not, then there would be a suffocating silence between them, both waiting to hear the unsaid words that lingered on the tip of both their tongues. But regardless of the awkwardness that now lurked in the air among them, Quinn was not sorry about, nor did she regret what she said that night. Every word came from the very pit of her stomach. They were said in anger, yes, but they were said in all honesty. He was selfish and cruel and she hated him. This feeling of vengeance within her was so unfamiliar that it felt unreal. She'd never dreamt of hating Gio, but after what he did and said, she could not help herself. She thought she'd love him forever, and though there was still a lot of love in her heart for him, it was gradually withering. These past few days, she had to struggle through the pain of seeing him and Delilah together. She visited his office quite often, as if she were afraid that he'd abandon her like he abandoned Quinn. She probably thought that Quinn would fight to reclaim what was once hers, but Quinn would not stoop so low. She would not take Gio back even if the goddess commanded it. He didn't deserve her love. Quinn knew she was worth much more. Her father taught her that, if nothing else, that old man boosted her self-esteem to the limit. Apart from all of that though, there was one more thing on her mind, that man she'd met, the Alpha King. Despite trying hard to forget about the dance, the kiss, the tempting words, she couldn't. His face haunted her mind, and his scent that remained on the jacket he'd given her calmed her heart every time she held it close. It was as though she missed him and desperately wanted to see him again. But if and when she does see him again, what would she do? What would she say? And what exactly would transpire between them? She heard that he'd yet to find his mate, but it would be wrong of her to date him when one day ahead his mate could show up. She didn't want to be like Delilah, she didn't want to take him away from the person he was fated to, which was why she was trying hard to dismiss the thought of him. Furthermore, she didn't want to be abandoned again, and if his mate showed up, then, that would be exactly what'll happen. Sighing, she picked up the paper she'd been reading, passing it to Gio. This one requires your signature, Alpha. I've read it through, the percentages and the funds are accurate and fair. Thanks. He took the paper, his hand brushing against hers as he did so. The simple touch had both their eyes meeting, but he was quick to look away. Quinn's eyes sunk back into the heap of paper, her nervous fingers hauling one from the batch. She could still feel the sparks whenever they touched. Could he feel it too? She shook her head. It didn't matter whether he felt it or not, nothing mattered between them now. It was over, it was done, and Quinn paused for a second, sniffing the air when a familiar scent drifted across her nostrils. Was she imagining it? Why was he? How could he be here? She stood up, looking towards the door when the scent became denser, weighing down on her senses without restraint. Apricot, petrichor, both scents were unique, and there was only one person who sported them both. The doorknob twisted and Cannon was the first to step inside. Alpha, the guests have arrived. From behind him came three men, one which she knew by heart, Alpha Zade. How come? Guests? What are they doing here? Quinn looked at Gio for answers, but he kept his mouth sealed in a thin and angry line. It was instead Alpha Zade who gleefully responded. I told you, I'd see you again. The man beside him bumped his shoulders and whispered words that Quinn could have barely made out. Stop acting like a clown, Zade. Zade nodded, the smile on his lips immediately faltering. We'll be here for 7 days. I realized that I signed the contract without knowing anything about this pack or its origin. I'm here to make up for that. I really do hope that's all, Gio chimed in. Alpha Zade tilted his head, the atmosphere around him suddenly becoming heavy and austere. And if not? Gio chuckled stiffly. If not, then you will have to buy me a beer or two for giving me extra work. Ah, right, I thought as much. You deserve a beer for agreeing to let me and my boys stay. Can we have a tour of the land? Cannon will be happy to take you guys on a tour. No, I'll be happier if Beta Quinn here did it. Quinn is busy. Alpha Zade interrupted. I'm sure Gamma Cannon wouldn't mind helping her out for an hour or so, right, Cannon? Cannon nodded his head, seeming obviously confused. I wouldn't mind. All right then, it's settled. Quinn will be the one to take me on a tour. Quinn looked at Gio as she stood, the irritation was clear as day on his face. I'll be back in a few then, Alpha. Jeovanni did not answer, he didn't even glance up from the paper he was looking at, and Quinn took that as her cue to just go. She followed Alpha Zade and his people outside beneath the evening sun. So, where must I start? Anywhere you're comfortable with, Little Red. Alpha Zade clasped his hands behind him, slowing down so they walked at the same pace. How have you been these past days? I've missed you dearly. I've been fine. And your arm? It has completely healed now. Let me see. He unclasped his hands, stopping in the middle of the pathway to grab hers. He examined it, a proud smile spreading across his lips. I'm happy it did not leave a scar. He looked up at her, those dark eyes staring way past her soul. The first time she'd seen him, the room was dark, but now that he stood beneath the bright light of the sun, she could analyze his beauty much clearer. He now looked more handsome than he did before. Those lips that had been against hers looked just as moist and tasty as they were, and his hair seemed to have been freshly lined. How could one man appear so unworldly? So where have you decided to take me first? Quinn's mouth watered at the sound of his voice, and at the sparks that his touch on her arm induced. I haven't made up my mind yet. While you make up your mind. He pointed at the two men in front. Meet my Beta Dante and my Gamma Frederick. They won't be accompanying us on this tour, but I'm introducing them to you anyway. Hi. You guys are welcomed here. Yes, thank you, but Zade, why are we not attending this tour? Because you guys said you didn't want to. When did we? Zade's eyes twitched as he stared at Dante, coaxing him shut his mouth. Yes, I remember now. He rolled his eyes, draping an arm over Frederick's shoulder. We'd planned to tour ourselves, let's get going. Now that only the two of them stood on the paved path, a certain nervousness took a hold of Quinn. She pulled her hand out of his, her eyes shifting away from his intense gaze. So, I'll just take you to the pack house first, I'm certain that's where you'll be staying during your time here. Okay, lead the way. Quinn walked in front, forcing confidence in each of her steps until they made it to the marketplace. Our pack is small, but we grow our own food and sell it both to the people of our pack and others. We also trade food for weapons, it is an attribute of ours, we use it to coax other packs into trusting and forming an alliance with us. Thus, this is our marketplace and the people here are mostly farmers. Nice and creative, we don't really plant on our land, like most packs, we buy food in bulk and distribute it. That works too, but since our pack is small and a little low in the rankings, we need a selling point. Well, that makes sense. As they walked past the stalls splayed out along the sidewalk, the people bowed to them, some even offering Quinn various fruits, which she respectfully declined. She had enough at home. The next stop was the place of interest, the pack house. The massive building was painted in pure white, and it stood tall in the center of the land. This is our pack house. Mostly teenagers who have yet to find their mates live here. In our pack, it's tradition for the dominant wolf to build a house for their mate as soon as they find them. Then, does that mean I'll have to build you a house as well? Quinn's ears twitched at his daring words. She did not know how to respond, there were no words on the tip of her tongue. That question left her flustered and speechless, for how could he say something like that without a hint of playfulness in his deep voice? How did he expect her to reply? With a yes? With a no? Or perhaps with a maybe? Quinn cleared her throat, deciding not to answer that question at all. Shall we move on? Go ahead. All right then, I'll take you to the elders' quarter. It's not far from here, and it's the last place I have in mind to show you. She walked ahead, leading him a couple meters away from the pack house. The elders' quarter paled in size, but it too was large. This is where the elders stay. They are as important to us as warriors. I see. That's it for today, our pack is small, so we don't really have a lot to show. Should I lead you back to the Alpha's office? She finally turned to look at him. The evening sun had gone down not much long ago, and now darkness settled above the land, sheltering it with the light of the moon. You guys probably have some important things to discuss. What could be more important than spending more time with you, Quinn? He sighed, staring at her with a dark and mysterious gaze, one that she could not read. I don't believe the tour is finished as yet. Take me to the farm. I want to see it. Well, you saw it last time. You were there when I fought the rogue. Show me where you live then. It's not much, I'm living with my parents right now. Why? Did he not build you a house? Quinn's heart started to beat faster, shame, a profuse amount of it filling her to the very brim. Her eyes shifted away from his, hands gripping tight to her green blouse as she searched for words to change this awful subject. Since you want to see more, I'll take you to the training grounds. That's the only place I can think of right now. She walked away before he could approve, heading into the close-by woods. She could hear his steps behind her, quick and unfaltering, unlike hers that had lost all the confidence she'd feigned. From the start, his questions were too intense to answer, but that one left a weight atop of her head. It was so heavy that it brought her down. It still hurt, the fact that Geo had built that house for her, and yet, Delilah was the one living in it. Quinn gasped when a hand grabbed onto hers, stopping her in her march towards the fields. You didn't answer me, Quinn. Why? That's because it's none of your concern whether he built me a house or not. You think so? He chuckled, the sound as dark as the night. You don't get to tell me what concerns me and what doesn't, Quinn. Everything about you concerns me. Quit trying to push me away, you're mine now, not his, at least acknowledge that fact. What are you saying? I'm not. A low growl rumbled through his chest as he twisted her towards him. Finish that statement if you dare. Quinn's lips wobbled at the anger in his voice and the dark abyss behind his eyes. He moved closer towards her, forcing her to retreat until her back was against the rough bark of a tree. He caged her against it, hauling submission out of her with nothing but his intense gaze. I don't think you understand this, Quinn. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you are still my mate regardless, and you're always going to be. So if I were you, I'd get used to me being around. Mate? What do you mean? Stop pretending to not know. You've been doing that since the very night we met, while I had to be forcing my wolf under control and trying hard to not claim you since you obviously weren't ready. I was all right with that, but pretending that a bond doesn't exist between us is as far as my tolerance goes. I don't understand. Quinn's eyes were wide with confusion now. What was he talking about? Her mate? He was her mate? How and since when? What bond? I will be honest, I do feel attracted to you, but my wolf has never acknowledged you as our mate. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you lying to me, Quinn? The tone of his voice made it impossible for her to lie. Did he not know that? Quinn shook her head. I'm not. I swear I'm not. A sigh left his lips as he ran a frustrated hand through his hair. All right, I'm not sure what's going on with you, since it's almost impossible for a wolf to not be able to scent out their mate, but I'm going to believe you, which means that I also forgive you. But since you know now, you have no excuse. I refuse to have you continuously running away from me when I've been waiting my whole life for you. You're mine, Quinn, or perhaps my words alone won't assure you of that. Should I start moving a little faster? Fast enough to leave my mark on your neck. He pushed himself closer to her, and a shiver racked through Quinn as his hand reached for her face, holding it still as he leaned down to kiss her. His lips, they were as soft as the first time he kissed her 5 nights ago, but now the kiss was rougher, carved out of dominance and possessiveness. His free hand reached around her waist, pulling her body flush against him so his warmth and the sparks could flow freely from him to her. When he pulled back, Quinn was panting, her legs feeling weak beneath her. Alpha Zade. Or perhaps that's taking it too far. Must I show you who you belong to by different means? After all, there are many ways to leave my mark on you without actually leaving it, right, Quinn? Or perhaps that's taking it too far. Must I show you who you belong to by different means? After all, there are many ways to leave my mark on you without actually leaving it, right, Quinn? His words promised Quinn something she could not explain, they held such determination that she knew he would see them through. Do you want that? The resonance of his voice paired with the ethereality of his face and the beauty of his scent had Quinn nodding like a fool. She knew she was supposed to say no, she knew the wrong, and she knew the right, but she was deliberately leading herself down the wrong path. I want that. Open your mouth. Quinn's lips fell apart immediately, willingly giving him the access he needed, and he wasted no time to dip his tongue inside, searching her mouth, claiming it. He pushed forward, pressing her against the tree as he pulled away, lips tracing their way down her neck. Your scent is divine, he told her, but what was really divine was him, his lips, his tongue, his hot and tempting breaths, everything. I can't wait for you to be completely mine, I'll claim all of you. If I promise you nothing, then I promise you that. He sucked on the soft skin, engraving little red marks that Quinn used to think were irrelevant. Now though, they felt necessary, she wanted him to leave them all over her. He squeezed the succulent flesh and Quinn could physically feel a slick drip down her walls in abundance. She wanted him, this man that she barely knew, she wanted him in a way she'd never wanted anyone before. His scent was now more captivating than Gio's, and his face, his voice, everything about him was more attractive. Was what he said the truth? Was he really her mate? Then was that also why she couldn't fall asleep these past few days without hugging his shirt? Was that why she couldn't get him off her mind? Quinn grabbed onto him, pulling him closer. Her lips were sealed, but her body was obviously begging for more. The way her hips grinned against his lower half was unlike her, but right now, she did not feel like herself. She could feel the blatantly hard flesh that hid behind his trousers, threatening to burst free, and she could feel his hot and tantalizing breaths against her neck as he panted. A growl resonated through his chest, and he grabbed her grinding hips, stopping their movements. You'd better stop, Quinn, not even I know exactly what I'm capable of. I never wanted to do this in a place like this, not with you. But I did promise to leave my mark on you, even if it is but a memory that you'll never forget. So, be patient, my lil bundle of flames, I will do everything in my power to make sure you know that you are mine. He raised his head from the crook of her neck, looking down at her with a desireful gaze. Your scent has gotten deeper, so I won't ask. I know for sure that you want this too. His hand slid away from her hips, unbuttoning her jeans. That's where Quinn should have drawn the line, but she was drunk, and in this heated moment, there was nothing to sober her up. Her baggy jeans fell down her legs without a single struggle, and she kicked them off, wanting to know what he'd do, dying and yet living in deep anticipation. The waistband of her panty, he played with it before finally sliding his hand inside. Quinn moaned even before, her eyes rolling to the back of her head as the pleasure of the first touch coursed through her. His digits spread her, rolling against the pinnacle of her desire. Quinn's head fell against his chest, lip between her teeth as she forbade herself from moaning out too loud. They were hidden in between bushes and trees, but they were still out in the open. She had to be quiet, she had to hold it in, she tried, but she still could not hold back the cries of pleasure. They effortlessly opened her locked lips, climbing out boisterous and boldly. With his free hand, Quinn felt as he lifted her head, his lips catching hers, swallowing the whimpers and the moans, taking them all. When he pulled back, Quinn was panting, chest heaving and falling as his hand slipped out of her drawers, and then he slowly slid to his knees in front of her. The Alpha King, the strongest alpha of this era, was knelt before her. He looked up, those dark eyes meeting hers with nothing but desperation and with a want she wasn't confident she could ever fulfill. He pulled her panty down her legs, and then he spoke. Put your leg on my shoulder, Angel. His voice sounded deeper than it had been before, commanding and yet gentle. Quinn's leg trembled as she moved it over his shoulder, her eyes drifting away from him when sudden self-consciousness fell down on her. She could feel his breaths against her flesh, and when he inhaled, Quinn wanted desperately to close her legs. Why was she like this? She might have not done anything like this outside, but she'd done it behind closed doors with Gio, so why? What was wrong with her now? Slowly and reluctantly, her hand reached down, covering the gateway to her pleasure, and he growled, regaining her attention. She looked down at him, freckled cheeks flustered. Do you want us to stop? Quinn shook her head. Move your hand, I've smelled heaven, now let me taste it. He began with leaving blatant marks on her inner thigh, riling her up until she could barely take it anymore. His eyes were still on her, watching her as he moved closer to the apex of her thighs. Quinn was impossibly wet, so much so that she felt ashamed of herself. It's been months since she had any form of intimate contact, and now this man was giving her more than Gio ever could with just a few touches. Her hands clenched by her side as she waited for him to reach the climax, as well as the conclusion of this night. He chuckled, the sound throaty. You're so impatient, little red, but then again, it's time I gave you what you want. With those words, his lips dived between her folds and Quinn hurled over from the pleasure, shiver after shiver racking down her spine. She straightened herself, not able to hold back her cry when the anticipation that had been drowning her finally washed her up. Her legs were shaking so much that she could barely hold herself up. This was bliss. Fervent butterflies were burning a path in the pit of her stomach. The heat was rising, to a point where she could not hold back the explosion. Her body stiffened, head thrown back as she finally let go, coming on his finger that had dug so deep into her. He didn't stop lapping at her essence, not until the prominent convulsion of her body came to a sudden stop. He pulled away then, licking her slick off his lips and sliding her leg off his shoulder. He straightened himself, standing to his feet and towering over her. Was that enough? Did you finally recognize the compatibility and the bond between us? Is this enough to prove that you are mine? He smirked, index finger sliding across her neck, stopping at the burn mark that was there. Or must I just mark you? It'd be nice to replace his stupid mark with mine once and for all. At those words, Quinn's body tensed, her eyes glancing down to her clothes on the low grass and then up at him. It seemed she'd been drunk before, but she had sobered up now. What had she done? How could she have? He said he was her mate, but it could have been a lie, and even if it was the truth, Quinn didn't. She didn't want to start all over again, to get hurt all over again. Gio had done enough damage. She couldn't deal with the emotional trauma of being betrayed again. Pushing herself off the tree, she walked around him, ready to run away, but he grabbed her hand, just like he did that night when Gio hauled her away from him. Quinn, where are you going? At least stay here a little longer with me. No, Quinn clenched her jaws, hauling her hand out of his. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Consider tonight a mistake, one that I terribly regret. And then she ran off, changing into her silver wolf mid-run. She ran back home, not even greeting her parents as she walked inside, sad. Her father tried to talk to her, but she slammed the door in his face, putting on some clothes before curling up beneath the sheets. She was stupid. She'd just made a fool out of herself, and for what? The tears that rushed down her cheeks, she wiped them, tangibly feeling as her pride diminished. She shouldn't have fallen for that, shouldn't have fallen for him. His mouth was as wild as Lupin's, he was the Alpha King, he could get any woman he wanted, and he chose her? The girl with the scar of an abandoned mark on her neck. Quinn laughed bitterly. If she fell for him, he'd toss her aside, because him too would soon realize that she wasn't enough, even if it takes him 3 years. With a trembling hand, Quinn pulled the sheets from over her head and looked blurrily at the black jacket splayed out across her pillow. She reached for it, pulling it against her chest after inhaling its scent. As predicted, it calmed her, giving her a reason to find peace in her sleep. The next morning, Quinn woke up to 3 knocks on her door. Her eyes fluttered open, blurrily looking towards the door. Dad? Yes, sweetie, it's me. I'm aware you may still not be in a good mood, but someone is here to see you. Who? The Alpha King. Quinn jumped up, throwing the jacket aside as she staggered towards the window, pulling the curtain aside to look outside. The blurriness of her eyes had now suddenly dispersed, for she wasn't just hearing things, he was out there, standing right in front of the veranda. Quinn sighed, running her hand down her face. The memories of last night were still fresh in her mind. She wasn't ready to face him yet. What would he say, and how would she respond? Groaning to herself, she opened up her bedroom door, greeting her father. Morning, father. You might want to fix your hair and wash your face. Quinn nodded, walking to the bathroom instead of the front door. She combed her fingers through her messy red hair, catching it in a bun that was equally messy. Then she washed her face and brushed her teeth as quickly as possible. She knew she was going out there to reject him, but she still wanted to look the least bit presentable. She wasn't sure why, but in front of him, she always felt self-conscious, even more so after what happened last night. Clearing her throat, she pulled the front door open, holding her head down as she walked outside. "Hello, may I ask how you found my house?" "Cannon took me." "Okay, and what are you doing here?" "Last night, I told you that I didn't want any. I came here to return these." Quinn finally held up her head, looking at the bag he held in front of him instead of his face. She couldn't look at him, she'd burst with embarrassment if she did. "What's that?" "Your clothes, the ones you left behind. I washed and dried them last night." More shame filled her as she reached for the bag, taking it from his hand. "Thanks," she turned to walk back inside, but stopped. "I hope what happened between you and me doesn't taint your judgment of the pack. I'm sorry if I led you on, I'm sorry if I'd hurt your feelings, but I don't want this, you or this bond." "You can say that all you want, Quinn, but I will not give up." "You're lying to yourself, you do want this, but you're afraid." "Don't worry, I'll be gentle, I'll slow down my pace. Last night I pushed you too far. I will not do that again, not until you're ready to wholeheartedly accept this." He retreated after that, not saying another word, just quietly walking away. Quinn turned to watch him, sighing as she glanced down at her jeans pant in the plastic bag. His voice had been so gentle and determined that it made her heart move. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy, but hadn't Gio been a nice guy at first too? After Alpha Zade left, Quinn took a shower and went to Gio's office, determined to be a good beta, so that at least her father could keep his space in the pack. Her walk was quiet and lonely, only the marketplace was lively, but Quinn was too caught up in her thoughts to talk to the people who'd called out to her. When she got to Gio's office, she sighed before twisting the knob and stepping inside. He was already seated behind his desk, a pen in his hand as he stared down at the sheet of paper in front of him. Quinn turned to close the door behind her and then walked further into the office. "Good morning, Alpha, what do you request of me today? I see you're here to do your job today after abandoning it yesterday." "Yesterday I was." Gio slammed his hand against the desk, standing to his feet. "You were." He walked around the desk, approaching her predatorily. "A man you have no business." Quinn backed away until she was against the wall, and his hand slammed against the thick concrete as he caged her against it. "Quinn, why are you doing this? Tell me." Quinn's heartbeat rattled as anger tore through her. "I didn't like him. I didn't do it." "Then what are those on your neck?" "Those marks, Quinn." He ran his hand down his face, then leaned down to lay his head against her shoulder. "Why are they there?" I don't have to explain everything to you. I'm here to assist you with pack duties and nothing else." "No, Quinn, don't say that. You know I still love you, and I always will. Why are you doing this to me? You're cheating and it hurts. I know what I've done, and I'm sorry, I can take it back, I don't want her anymore." Quinn's hands clenched. "So after you violated my little sister, you want to leave her now? Just like you did to me." I might hate Delilah for taking you away from me, but I will not let you hurt her like you've done me. She's an Omega, I doubt she can withstand the pain. If you didn't want her, why did you lead her on? I thought I wanted her, I was sure I did, but you Quinn, I can't forget about you. You live in my mind day and night. I regret it, okay? It hurts to admit, but I regret everything I did that night. Don't bother, Quinn shoved him away from her. Although it hasn't really been confirmed, I've been given a second chance. I don't want you back, there are bigger fish in the sea, and the goddess gave me the biggest one. Is it him? The Alpha King? He looked at her, desperately. You can't, Quinn. I am your mate, I am your first, I am your second and I will be your last. Forget about him and come back to me, I promise I'll never do anything to hurt you ever again. He closed the distance between him and her, his lips forcibly taking hers between his in a kiss that Quinn did not respond to. When she tried to push him away, he grabbed her arms, pinning them above her head. And he kissed her, he kissed until she could barely breathe, not pulling away until the door was slammed opened. Delilah walked in, witnessing the scene with wide eyes, and it was only then he yanked himself away from her, twisting towards his Omega. Delilah the bag in her hand fell, and she twisted on her feet, running back through the door with blatant tears falling down her cheeks. Delilah! Geo followed her out, and Quinn fell to her knees, panting to catch her breath. The pain in Delilah's eyes resembled that which had been in hers the night she got rejected. Some people would have been happy to see their enemy receive their karma, but right now, Quinn felt heartbroken, for herself and for Delilah. She'd wanted to protect that 18-year-old girl from anything that could hurt her, and seeing her cry just now means that she had failed. What must she do now? Everything was really falling apart, Delilah's life and hers, and Jeovanni was the culprit. How could he love them both? Two sisters, one sweet and girly, the other sweet too but a little rough. What was wrong with him? How could he have led on her dear sister just to destroy her in the end? How could he? Tears dripped down Quinn's eyes, and she wiped them shakily. This was all too hard to take in, she needed to breathe, to think this through, and the only place she could go right now and feel comfortable was by that tree with her name carved on it. She stood on her shaky feet, looking down at the bag Delilah had dropped and the food that was scattered inside of it. Poor thing, it seems she had already fallen too deep for him. Zade moved his foot against Dante's thighs, looking at nothing in particular. You guys have mates, give me some suggestions, it seems she's angry at me. Why? Did you trapped up? Dante asked, shoving his foot off for the 100th time. What exactly did you do? That's none of your business, just give me some suggestions on how to get her to stop sulking. How will we give you suggestions if we don't know what you did? Frederick peeked up from his phone as if he'd been thinking for a while now. Oh, I know. How about you actually apologize for what you did? Good idea, Zade said sarcastically. But no, I will not apologize, not for that. What happened between us was sacred and even if I did go too far, I am not sorry. And what happened? If you don't talk Zade, I'm kicking you out of my room. I can't talk, I mean, I won't. What? Did you tease her? Not exactly. So, You almost tease her and then what? Zade glared over at him. I didn't say I almost tease her though. It's obvious, nothing to be ashamed of, moving on. What else happened? She told me she didn't want anything to do with me or our bond, and then ran away. She's not just angry, dude, she literally broke up with you even before you guys started dating. Dante laughed, slapping Frederick's back so he could laugh too. He didn't, he was too preoccupied by the stupid game he was playing. I'm being serious, Dante, stop making a joke out of everything. Alright, I'm sorry. I'll try my best to help. Zade sighed, resting his foot against Dante's thigh once again. He didn't understand, he thought she'd been opening up to him last night, and then everything just took a wrong turn. Did she not like how straightforward he was? Had he been moving too fast? Perhaps so, but she'd wanted him, just as much he'd wanted her. The desire that had been in her eyes contributed to his why. The little moment they shared was a torture and a blessing altogether. He could still taste her on his lips, the bittersweet taste that had turned him on, and he still remembered the look of perfection on her face as she came. At that moment, pride had washed through him like a flood, but when she walked away and told him she didn't want him, humility had shattered him with a drought. He'd felt saddened, even his wolf had whimpered pitifully like a dog abandoned by its master. He needed to get her to trust him. She probably thought he was the same as her prior mate, who as rumored left her for her sister. He wasn't like that, and that was what he needed to show her. But how? She kept pushing him away, and if he held his ground, then she'd run. He had to find a way to stick close to her, but again, how? Sighing when Dante threw his foot aside again, he stood up, walking to the door. Where are you going, man? You guys aren't helping, I'm leaving. Wait, just wait, Frederick threw his phone aside, that thing Zade had tried to talk him out of buying. I have an idea, go to her house and tell her if she doesn't accept the bond, you'll terminate the contract between our pack and theirs. That's what I'd have done. So, in other words, you're telling me to threaten and force her to become mine? Such a good idea, dude, she'll really fall in love with me. The sarcasm in his voice had Dante laughing. Well, it wasn't such a bad idea, the best we've come up with so far. Keep them coming, Rick. All right, another one. Zade leaned against the door, ears twitching as he eagerly listened. He hoped this one would be of help. Go on. Kill the ex, that way, there'll be nobody to stop her from accepting you. The high expectation that Zade shouldn't have even had in the beginning fell like a block atop of his head. He'd known it, he shouldn't have put his trust in either of them. Not in Dante and not in Frederick. Their mates are possibly fools to have accepted them. Rolling his eyes, he sighed. Wouldn't that make things harder? I do want to kill him, but if I kill the person she loves, wouldn't she just hate me more? Well, I guess, then how about this? Zade shook his head, twisting towards the door. I've been lazing off here for the entire day, I need to find my own way around this. Thanks for entertaining me because your suggestions must have all been jokes. He sluggishly opened the door and walked through it, going back to his room which was right across from theirs. He took off his shoes at the doorway and walked into the bathroom. A way to stay by her side, a way to stay by her side. His thoughts paused as his hand reached for the faucet above the tub, and an enticing idea ran across his mind when he remembered the words Canon told him when he first brought him here. This room is the best we have, but there have been multiple issues with the faucet in the bathroom. It's a bit rusty because it isn't often used. We've fixed it, but still be careful in case it acts up again. A way to stay by her side, perhaps this could work. Quinn didn't go home until there was no sun in the sky. She'd sat on the tree root and thought about everything over and over again until she was mentally drained and tired and hungry. She thought going home would relieve her of all of that stress, but sadly, going home only increased her anxiety, because she could smell Zade's scent, that scent that always felt the need to intoxicate her. Sighing, she walked up onto the porch, opening the front door and walking inside. What could he possibly want from her now? She'd been through enough emotional stress, and now he was here to bestow even more upon her. Her eyes searched the room, finding him seated on the couch with her father. He had a glass in hand, and she knew it was beer that was inside, and he was laughing with Derek as though he'd known him for more than a year. And then what happened? I brought him down, son. I studied the game in the first 2 rounds and gave them a surprise attack in the next. Nice one, it seems you lived out your youth, unlike me. You still have time left. You're in your 20s, aren't you? You can settle down with your mate, but as a man, you can still have fun. I gambled until Catherine threatened to reject me. Alpha Zade laughed again. I'm glad she didn't. I hope my mate doesn't reject me. As he said that, he glanced at her, and Quinn immediately looked away as she continued inside. Father, what is he doing here? Oh sweetheart, you're back? He said you guys are close, so he came here for help. The faucet in his bathroom was malfunctioning, and before he could get it sorted out, his whole room was flooded, so I agreed to have him spend the night here. What? Quinn's eyes widened, even her mouth dropped open. He can't stay here, Dad. Why not? Because he, Quinn sighed. He just can't. He's going to be sleeping here in the living room, he won't cause you any harm. He's a good man, down to earth regardless of his status. I didn't say he isn't a good man, I said he can't stay here, him and Dad, just let him stay somewhere else. There must be other spare rooms. Even so, I'd prefer it if he stays. He's my beer company for tonight and probably tomorrow night too, right son? Mom came in, carrying sliced apples on a tray. Have a bite you too, beer isn't healthy. She placed it on the living room table and Zade smiled at her. Thank you, ma'am. Quinn squinted at him. She didn't know what his game was. Why was he doing this? Why was he here? She'd already made it clear that nothing was going to happen between them, so why? Quinn ran her hand through her loose hair, which flowed all the way past her shoulders. It was okay, he could stay, but if it was her he came here for, then he'd leave unsuccessful. Frowning at him, she walked into the kitchen where Catherine was, avoiding all eye contact. She went for the pot on the stove, freezing when her mother spoke first. I left yours in the microwave, you can heat it up if you want. And then she left without another word. Quinn stood in her spot, not knowing what to do and how to react. In 3 years, her mother had spoken to her first. She didn't know the reason, but it lit a fire of joy in her heart. Was this her finally coming around like Dad said? If so, then she was happy, at least one thing good was happening in her life. Moving closer to the microwave, she heated her food before taking it out, walking through the living room to her room door. She went inside, sitting down on her bed and silently eating her food. The house was noisy. Dad seemed happy to finally have some man company. It reminded her of those times when Gio would come over and they'd drink until they're drunk and fall asleep in the living room. And suddenly that distant thought had Quinn becoming sad again. She placed her food on the bedside table and laid back against the bed, pulling the sheets over her. She was a mess. She'd eaten. Right now, she just needed some respite. Closing her eyes, she tried to fall asleep, but couldn't. Miserable thoughts cave her mind until the once noisy house became silent. She'd heard when Catherine came to drag Dad out of the living room, but what she hadn't expected to hear was 3 knocks on her door a while after. She peeked out from under her white sheets, looking towards the door. She knew exactly who was there, and her heart started to beat in her ears. What must she do? If she opened the door now, then she'd be caught in his web again. It was best to feign sleep. She had no confidence to face him now. Pulling the sheet over her head again, she closed her eyes, opening them when he knocked once more. I know you're not sleeping, Quinn. A minute, just give me 1 minute out of your time, please. The desperation in his voice tore at Quinn's heart. It for one had her shuffling off the bed and reluctantly walking towards the door. Her hand shakily settled over the knob for a while before she finally twisted it open. She'd just give him that 1 minute he begged her for. I know you're not sleeping, Quinn. A minute, just give me 1 minute of your time, please. The desperation in his voice tore at Quinn's heart. It for one had her shuffling off the bed and reluctantly walking towards the door. Her hand shakily settled over the knob for a while before she finally twisted it open. She'd just give him that 1 minute he begged her for. Nothing more, nothing less. Pulling the door open, she looked at him, the light from her room illuminating the dark space he stood in. What do you want to say? Can I come in? Or do you want to come out? Quinn sighed, stepping out of the doorway. Come in. When he walked in, she closed the door behind him, gesturing towards the bed Delilah used to sleep on. You can sit there. While he sat, she took a seat in front of him on her bed. Can you talk now? Well, I'm not sorry about what I did, what we did. I'm only sorry that it wasn't enough to actually make you mine. The fact that you regret it, the fact that you consider it to be a mere mistake makes my heart ache. I might not fully understand why you're so strongly against this, but can you not at least give me a chance? Is that what you're here for? Precisely, it is exactly what I'm here for. I heard about what happened. I probably shouldn't have stuck my nose in your business, but about what he did, I'd never do the same to you. Quinn fumbled with her fingers in her lap, looking towards the door. Leave. If that's all you have to say, then leave. I'm not done yet. I don't care, just go. He sighed, standing to his feet and walking back towards the door. Instead of opening it, he turned to face her. You know, you don't have to be so hard on yourself, everybody knows you're in pain. It's inevitable, but pushing me away won't help you to overcome it. You got a second chance, Quinn, move on. And then what? A second chance turns into a third, and then eventually into a fourth. I know how it will all end. I will always be the one in pain, the one left out in the cold and bruising wilderness of the world. I will be left alone, rejected and abandoned. It won't change, regardless of who I'm with. She looked away from him, blurry eyes fixated on the white walls. So stop trying to convince me, you don't want me, I have already been tainted. No alpha king would want a woman who already has a mark on her neck. And how are you so sure of that, Quinn? You're underestimating yourself and even the power of the goddess. She paired us for a reason, we were meant to be. I thought the same when I encountered Geo. But that's different. How? If you and him were truly meant to be, then you would have never been given a second chance. I am not him, and I never will be. As if you'd tell me otherwise. Just leave, you will be better off without me and I without you. Do you really think so? I've waited for you for 9 years, it didn't matter who you were, I just wanted to find my mate, but now it does matter, because if it's not you, then I don't want a mate. Your beauty is irrefutable, it's unparalleled, unmatched, and I'm sure the beauty in your heart is just the same. I won't give up, it is you who I want and you who I shall claim. You will be mine someday, Quinn, and in his shadow, you will no longer lurk. He turned to the door, twisting the knob, and that's when the tears that had settled in Quinn's eyes finally fell down her cheeks. I'm not lurking in his shadow, I'm not, it's just that you were right, I am afraid to be betrayed and broken again. Experiencing it once was painful enough, but to go through the pain of betrayal and rejection twice, I can't. A sob climbed up her throat, and Zade twisted the knob back to the right, turning to face her again. His footsteps were loud in her ears as he approached, plopping down on the bed beside her. I know, but giving shelter to the pain is even worse, let it go, let me help you. I swear on the rest of my life that I'd never hurt you. His arms were reluctant as they stretched around her shaking body, pulling her against him. He patted her head of red hair soothingly, the warmth and the sparks that flooded from him gradually calming her down. You can cry against my shoulder anytime, I will always be there to comfort you. I would never leave you like he did. I promise. He hugged her tighter against him, and a bearable silence settled between them. She felt good in his arms, like she belonged there, and yet because of the pain that fool had put her through, she was reluctant to trust him. Maybe Frederick was right, killing that man wasn't such a bad idea, she'd forget about him eventually, but even so, killing him would hurt her, and he'd promised to never cause her any harm. After a while of comforting her, her breaths became steady and calm, and so did the beat of her heart. He tried to pull back, but her limp body only fell back against his. She was sleeping, in his arms, she'd fallen into a deep and peaceful slumber. Pride filled his chest as though he'd just unlocked a new achievement. If she trusted him enough to fall asleep next to him, then she'd probably soon trust him enough to accept his mark. His wolf rumbled in his chest, a sign of joy that Zade hadn't felt in a long time. He was happy. Carefully easing away from her, he laid her against the bed, wiping the remnants of tears from her eyes. He then reached for the pillow above her head, freezing when the black jacket he'd given her came into view. The fact that she still had it puzzled him, but it also contributed to his growing happiness. Pushing it aside, he picked up the pillow, gently placing it beneath her head, before pulling for the sheets. He tucked her in, then turned to walk away, but her hand weakly grabbed onto his, stopping him from going any further. He looked back at her, watching as her soft pink lips moved along with her words. You said you wouldn't be like him, you said wouldn't leave me." Her eyes were still closed, which only meant she was sleep-talking. Her hand gripped his tighter, with a desperation that Zade could understand. She was scared, but he now realized that she wanted to be loved just like any normal person. She wanted to be treasured, to not be left alone, and he wanted to give her that. He wanted to be her peace. Walking back over to her bed, he stooped in front of her, kissing her hand, which still clutched his. "Don't worry, Quinn, I won't leave you, even if you beg me to." Quinn blinked, her eyes open, feeling well rested for the very first time in a while. She did not feel as drained and tired as she did yesterday, and maybe the prominent scent of apricot and petrichor was what contributed to such peace. She tried moving her right hand to get rid of the sheet that covered her lower body, and that's when she realized that something heavy was atop of it. Slowly and reluctantly, her eyes moved down to take a look, witnessing what she never thought she would. Alpha Zade, the current Alpha King, was seated on the floor, his head against her arm as he peacefully slept. Quinn's eyes widened, and she hurriedly pulled her hand from beneath his head, waking him up in the process. "What?" He rubbed his eyes and then looked over at her. "Ah, you're awake. What are you still doing in here? Don't you remember? Last night you held on to me and wouldn't let me go, that's why I stayed." Quinn's freckled cheeks lit up in a blush as she looked down at the hand, the same one that had apparently betrayed her. "You're lying, I'm not. Either way, you should have left instead of sleeping on the floor. It must have been uncomfortable. It probably would have been if you weren't beside me." He smiled at her, getting up from the floor with a groan he tried to hold in. His legs must be cramped. Sighing, Quinn looked up at him. Was he a fool? There was an empty bed across from hers, and yet he chose to sleep on the floor? "Why don't you sleep for a while first? I doubt you got enough rest last night. There's a free bed there, you sit while I'm gone. That's all? After sleeping on the floor, I don't even get a good morning kiss on the cheek. With all due respect, nobody told you to sleep on the floor, Alpha." Quinn grumbled. "I guess you're right, but next time, can I at least sleep beside you on the bed?" "There will be no next time, I will have Cannon get somebody to fix your bathroom faucet." "That's the thing, Quinn," Zade smirked. "It doesn't need to be fixed, it's working quite fine." Quinn's eyes widened as she pointed at him. But you told Dad that I know what I said and I lied." "It was all for a good cause though, I mean, I got to sleep next to you, even if it is on the floor." He smiled at her, walking towards the door while Quinn continued to give him a dumbfounded look. "I'll be leaving now, but I'll be back tonight." "Tonight? Why are you?" "I don't want you to." Before Quinn could even put her disoriented words together, her bedroom door slammed shut behind him. This man, why was he doing this? She needed to stop him, she needed to make it even clearer to him that she didn't want this. Scooting off the bed, Quinn stood to her feet, ignoring the sudden dizziness that hit her. She staggered her way to the door, looking through eyes that gradually became blurry. Her head was aching, and she suddenly felt weak and fragile, but nevertheless, she managed to make it to the living room. She walked to the front door, calling out his name as she opened it. She could see him, but his image was just as blurry as everything else around her. He stopped walking and turned to her. "What? Do you detest the idea that much, Quinn?" Quinn nodded, her staggering steps coming to a stop right in front of him. Yes, I hate it, that idea." The blurriness around her slowly evaporated to black, and then she could feel herself falling, but she also felt it when he caught her. "Quinn! Quinn! Are you all right?" He shook her almost flaccid body, his voice full of so much worry that she wanted to see his face. But she couldn't, her eyes were too heavy, she could not open them. She tried to fight the unconsciousness, but she ended up falling deeper into it, so deep that she could no longer hear him, so deep that she had eventually lost herself. Zade lifted her bridal style in his arms, looking towards her father when he rushed through the door. Her mother was there too, but she remained nonchalant at the doorway. "What happened? Is my daughter all right?" "She passed out suddenly. Where is the Pack Hospital? I need to take her there." "Give her to me, I'll take her." He tried to take her away, but Zade growled protectively at him. "No, I'll take her, I'll protect her." Derek looked at him, surprise clear in his eyes before he nodded. "All right, you can take her, just follow me." Zade did as told, looking down at Quinn. His wolf was at the very verge of losing control, his mate was hurt, and worry and uncertainty of her condition was numbing his every thought. She'd been okay just now, he'd spoken to her, she'd spoken to him, so what exactly could be the cause of this? Her forehead was full of sweat, even her neck was wet. He didn't like this, it was too sudden and unexplainable. Zade laid Quinn down on the bed in front of the doctor, then stepped outside when the man in white asked him to. Quinn's father was already seated by the door, and Zade took a seat beside him. "Has this ever happened before?" "Never, Quinn has never gotten sick, she's strong, she barely even gets hurt." "Then this," Zade sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Let's wait to hear what the doctor says." And so, they waited until the doctor stepped out of the room an hour later. Both Zade and Derek stood up, looking at him expectantly. "She's all right, but unfortunately, if she had taken more than what she already has, she'd be in a more dangerous position." "What are you talking about?" Zade asked him. "Nephrone, we found it in her blood. If you do not know, then it is a poison that carries no scent. I don't know how she got her hands on it, but it is dangerous to werewolves. It can weaken, suppress, or kill our wolves. In her case, her wolf was weakened, but thank goddess that it'll only take a few days for it to recover." "Why would Quinn? Could it be that someone put it in her food or something?" Derek stepped forward, nervously scratching the palm of his hand. "Quinn wouldn't take something as dangerous as that, she isn't suicidal, I'm sorry, but that isn't something I can pinpoint from a blood test, Whether it was given to her or she knowingly took it can only be figured out when she wakes up and confesses. When can we expect her to wake up? Soon, it can be minutes or even a couple of hours away. Quinn's father nodded, pointing to the door. Then can I go see my daughter? Yes, yes, you can. He didn't waste a second more. He rushed past the doctor on his way inside, and Zade followed him. Both stopped in front of the bed, staring down at Quinn who was still unconscious. Zade turned towards her father. If you don't think she intentionally took the poison, then who do you suspect gave it to her? I'm not certain, but she has been having some trouble with the pack members. She'd been Luna, and when she was suddenly rejected, like our alpha, the whole pack has lost respect for her. They stoned her with fruits and even packed her food that was rotted and spoiled as an apology. A few days back though, after she saved the pack from a disaster on the night of the celebration, the pack started to come around. They brought her food that wasn't spoiled for once as a thank you. Could it be that they are still against her? The fruits, she'd eaten them, we all did, but what? I don't understand. So you're saying the whole pack could have been the cause of this? They don't see her as Luna anymore, they probably don't want her as their beta either, and it's all because of him, that fool who had rejected his own mate. You're right, Zade nodded, looking at nothing in particular. His eyes were austere, and the air around him was heavy and unbearable. It is his fault, must I really just kill him? Derek gasped. No, son, you can't kill the alpha. Quinn coughed below them, and Zade and Derek quickly looked down at her. Her eyes, they were barely open now, and she was looking at Zade. Don't kill anyone. She tried to sit up, but Derek pushed back against the pillow. Lay down, Quinn, you need to rest. I'm fine now, Dad. What did the doctor say? What happened to me? You were, he hesitated for a while. You were poisoned. What? How? It's nephron, the poison that has no scent. He said your life could have been endangered if you'd intake more. Nephron? When did I? I didn't, I know, you must be shocked, I'll get to the bottom of this. I'll find out who gave that poison to you. Quinn shook her head, looking anywhere but at her father. Don't, it's okay. I'm fine. What do you? Zade pushed Derek aside, moving closer to Quinn. You're fine? You were unconscious in my arms just hours ago. And I'm fine now, this doesn't concern you, leave. Why do you keep saying that? Stop fueling my anger, Quinn. What's there to be angry about? Whatever it is, like I said, it doesn't concern you. Zade's eyes twitched in anger, his hands clenching and unclenching by his side. He wanted to say something, to argue about this being his business, but he walked out instead, deciding to walk off the anger than to let it grow. On the other hand, Quinn sighed, the breath full of nervousness and frustration. Why'd you do that? He'd been worried, he's the one that took you here. That doesn't matter, he doesn't have to be here, he is not needed. Is he perhaps your mate? The second chance we spoke about that night? He, Quinn blinked blankly. He isn't, he's nothing to me. Even so, he did seem to care strongly about your well-being. He was even skeptical to lay you down in front of the doctor. I know you're hiding something from me, but I'll wait until you're ready to tell me." Quinn sighed again, grabbing onto her father's hand when he tried to leave. Her green eyes were blurry with tears. "All right, I'll tell you, Dad, I trust you. You don't have to, don't force yourself." "No, I want to." She shifted on the pillow, looking up at her father with the most vulnerable eyes ever. "You see, he is my second chance. I don't know if it's because I was previously marked why I can't feel the mate bond, but despite that, I know we are mated. The attraction I have towards him is something I've never felt before, but Dad, I'm scared. I don't want us to end like Gio and I, so I keep pushing him away, but I don't know if doing that makes it all even worse. You're the only one I can talk to, Father, what should I?" Derek took a seat beside her on the tiny hospital bed. "He is your second chance for a reason, Quinn. You can't keep doing this." In his eyes, "You're probably the same as Gio. He rejected you for somebody else, but you're rejecting him because of a past he had no business in. He must be hurting, just as much as you did, think about that." "I know, Dad, but I don't. He's strong, he's an alpha, he probably doesn't want me. I've already been marked and Quinn wiped her eyes when they became too full. "I'm not pure anymore. I doubt he cares, I wouldn't. I've heard of his story. He did indeed wait for his mate for 9 years, he waited in misery. He became Alpha King because he had nothing to do. When others had mates to love and spend their time with, he trained. He had no weaknesses, so he became strong. And so, to lighten his dull life, rumor has it that he looked for fights wherever he went, until he eventually fought the prior Alpha King and won. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, it must have been hard, watching people taking something he doesn't have for granted." Quinn sniffled. "Yeah, he probably felt left out. And now he most likely feels even more left out. If these rumors are true, then he wants you, Quinn. Having waited so long makes you desperate, and he seems desperate. Don't lose your chance to be happy. Gio broke you, and the goddess gave you somebody to mend you, don't run away from him." He smiled at her, moving her red hair from her forehead to kiss the delicate skin. "But it's your choice, do whatever you want, but always follow your heart." Derek stayed with Quinn for the day, making sure she ate, and when the doctor finally gave her the go to leave, he took her home. Now Quinn sat in her room, wondering if she'd finally gone too far. Her words had been harsh, and her face was nonchalant. He said he'd be here tonight, but after what she'd done, would he even come? Alphas treasured their pride, and the fact that she kept throwing stones at his probably angered him. Had he finally given up now? The night had gotten darker and yet, he still wasn't here. Quinn sighed, laying back on her bed and grabbing onto the black jacket beside her. His scent that lingered on the thick material was fading away, and one day ahead she knew not even a trace of it will remain. Was that what was happening? Was he fading away? Would every trace of him too disappear as though it'd never been here? Quinn hugged the jacket to her chest, looking towards the door. Her father was right, she should have followed her heart from the beginning. If she had, then it would have never come to this. But then again, Geo shouldn't have been what hindered her, he should have been her motivation. If she had sense, then she'd moved on just to spite him. She was a fool indeed, foolish enough to have even believed Alpha Zade when he told her he wouldn't give up, for if this wasn't giving up, she didn't know what it was. Why wasn't he here yet? He didn't even come back to check if she was alive or dead. Was this really the end? If so, then that night in the woods, those rough kisses and words of ownership, were they all just a? Quinn jumped up into a sitting position when his scent drifted across her nostrils, not the faint scent that came from the jacket. This was the real deal. Shuffling off the bed, she rushed out of her room as soon as she heard the knock on the door. Her father, who was in the living room, gave her a knowing look which Quinn didn't have the time to ponder right now. Her clumsy steps took her to the front door, and it was then that nervousness took a hold of her high spirits. She wondered what he had to say. Would he ask her if she was okay? Would he still want to pursue her? She twisted the knob, pulling the door open with a hand that was shaking. He was right there, standing so tall on her father's porch with a face that could both make her heart stop and speed up. "Hi, no, I mean, Dad's in the living room. I didn't come here to see him, I'm leaving as soon as I speak to you. Can you come out for a second? I think it'd be better if you came in, it's cold out." Before he could protest, Quinn led the way back to her room, arms hugging around her waist as she nervously glanced at her father before going inside. Alpha Zade followed her, his face holding not a single emotion that she could read. When the door closed, Quinn's heart was beating so hard that she could hear it. "What do you want to talk about?" "For starters, I'm here to say that I'm done caring about what you said doesn't concern me. I believe I've been kind enough, I believe I've waited long enough. If this won't work, then why continue to try? I'm leaving tonight, you obviously don't want me here, and if me leaving will make you happy, then so be it." Quinn's throat felt dry all of a sudden, and she was almost at a loss for words. "So that means you're giving up?" He shrugged. "Do you want me to?" Quinn didn't answer, and Alpha Zade sighed. "I'm here to tell you goodbye, Quinn. If you ever change your mind and decide to figure out what you truly want, then you can find me at my pack." He turned his back to her, hand latching onto the doorknob. He was about to leave, but did Quinn want him to? Quinn's body moved on instincts. It was a rush of adrenaline that forced her to hug around his waist, stopping him from going outside, stopping him from leaving her. You said, her voice was low, filled to the brim with vulnerability. "You said you wouldn't give up, you said you wouldn't leave me, so don't." Alpha Zade's hand slid off the doorknob, and he twisted in her arms, facing her. "If I stay, will you stop pushing me away?" Quinn nodded with her forehead against his chest. Her face was beetroot red now. She'd be damned if she let him see, but what she hadn't expected was for him to use a finger to lift her face. "Words, Quinn, I want to hear you say it." Quinn swallowed, his voice was just as melodic as the first time he spoke. There was something about the way his words came out, something that always turned her on. I won't push you away, not anymore. Good girl, you deserve a reward for that." Before Quinn could even process his words, his lips were on hers, swallowing up the nervousness that had existed within her. He sucked the soft skin, nibbled it, and then proceeded to enter her mouth with a tongue that made her want more conspicuous. She held him tighter, breathing in his air, feeling his warmth and wanting even more. When he pulled away from the kiss, Quinn was panting, green eyes staring into his abyssal ones. Was that enough? I sure do hope it wasn't because I'm not yet done. For being patient and understanding, I do believe I deserve a reward too, right? Quinn nodded as though she were in a trance, but wasn't she? His beauty never ceased to amaze her, his charm was a gift, and it so happens that she was the one unwrapping it. Yes. Was that enough? I sure do hope it wasn't because I'm not yet done. For being patient and understanding, I do believe I deserve a reward too, right? Quinn nodded as though she were in a trance, but wasn't she? His beauty never ceased to amaze her, his charm was a gift, and it so happens that she was the one unwrapping it. Yes, his arms locked around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and then he kissed her again, stealing her breath and her heart. When he pulled back, she was yet again panting for more. Can I go a little further than I did that night? I won't go too far, I can only promise you that. His voice was rough and yet to her greedy ears it was as sweet as honey, and the words he spoke with such a sweet and captivating tone had slick dripping down her walls in an abundant manner. She bit her lip, nodding to his question because if she spoke, then what would come out were incomprehensive moans. Are you sure? Speak, Quinn, I don't want to do this just so you can run away again. Quinn bit her lip harder, closing her legs tight. She hid her face against his chest, embarrassed and diffident. Quinn, answer me. Slick pulled down her thighs, the discomfort it gave, making her squirm. She unlocked her lips, keeping her face hidden as she begged. Please, please just, I want this, I won't run away, so please. She reached for the hem of his shirt, desperately trying to take it off with hands that were shaking, but Alpha Zade grabbed them, stopping her completely. Look at me, Angel. No, not now, please. Look at me, Quinn. His voice was more demanding this time, and Quinn could not disobey. She looked up at him, showing him her green eyes that were full of desperate tears. Now tell me, do you want this or not? Quinn nodded. I do. I want this more than anything. Good, 'cause I've been wanting this too. He shoved her back, and she fell against Delilah's bed. The shirt she was trying to take off, he pulled it over his head. His muscles were so thick and taut that they made Quinn's mouth water, and her hands, the shaking limbs were begging to slide down the glistening tanned skin. He dropped the shirt on the floor. You've seen enough of me, Little Red, it's time for me to see all of you. He started. She was just an ordinary girl and to have someone as beautiful as him above her, Quinn felt the need to do more than just hide. Her freckled cheeks took on an even redder color. Quinn felt like she was suffocating. It seems he noticed. Seeing you like this after you boldly told me off earlier is amusing, but you have absolutely no reason to be shy. I've tasted you before, and you were delicious. Alpha Zade kissed his way back up, looking up at her with those dark, hazel eyes all the while. So delicious that I wish to taste you again. Her moans were loud even though she tried to keep them low. It felt too good, everything did. Quinn couldn't take it. She knew she wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. When last had her pleasure been this immense? When last had she ever felt this good? Hanging onto his hair tighter, she shoved his head even deeper between her legs, begging for more without actually begging for more. And Alpha Zade gave just that to her. He continued until she was shaking like a leaf against the bed, and he didn't stop, not even when tears squirted from the sides of Quinn's eyes. She tried to escape him, his tongue, his mouth, but he only proceeded to hold on to her tighter. She looked down at him. Stop, it's too much. Shhh, be patient, after all, I'd been more than patient while waiting for you. When he was finally done with her, Quinn had already came thrice and her legs were numb, they felt like they weren't even hers anymore. This man, he was nice overall, but not in bed. No matter how hard she begged, he did not stop. He tantalized her with his tongue and with his lips. He was a bad man, a bad man in bed. This is even more fascinating than I thought it'd be. Your reaction after every makes it hard for me to control myself, and yet in order to see it again, I choose to suffer, not anymore. I am hard as a rock, and just about to burst. You've had your fun, it's my turn now. Your turn? I thought we were done. Turn around, Quinn. Quinn's widened eyes finally glided away. What? Why? Just turn around, Angel, I know what I'm doing. Despite being clueless, Quinn reluctant twisted around, using her shaking legs and her hands to keep herself up. She glanced back at him, truly and entirely self-conscious now. If he couldn't see it all before, then he was seeing it all now. You said you wouldn't go too far, remember? As Zade adjusted her. Then what? Don't worry, little red, as much as I want to, I won't put it in, not unless you resort to begging me to. And I know you won't be doing that anytime soon, am I right? It felt good, this unfamiliar form of intimacy that she'd never tried before. His nails sunk into her sides, the pain, the pleasure, everything feeling like one. She wondered if he felt good too or just like her. Did he feel like he'd been eating for days and still not able to have a full belly? Quinn gripped the white sheets. His face was sweaty, those eyes that were already dark with desire now darker. His scent too had gotten stronger, poisoning and yet rejuvenating her at the same time. She wanted more, this wasn't enough. It was risky to trust him this early, but right now, she did not care. She wanted him. Gripping the sheets tighter, her wobbling lips slid from between her teeth, and she spoke with a low and shaky voice. More, please more. Alpha Zade's movements multiplied in power. Quinn cried out at the sudden pain that tore through her, throwing her head back in pleasure-filled agony as he did it again. You know, Quinn, I really had been patient, he chuckled, the sound dark, humorless. I'd been wanting for these cheeks red since the very first night I met you, that time you chose to go with him instead of me. My wolf was in rage, wanting to hold on to you and brutally murder him at the same time. I was lucky I was able to hold back. I won't anymore, I'll show you exactly who you're dealing with, a possessive and obsessive alpha. The tender skin he'd slapped, he gripped onto it, spreading the plump flesh and peering down at God knows what. You said you wanted more, didn't you? How much more do you want, Quinn? Be precise or I might lose it and go overboard." Quinn whimpered, feeling as even more slick pulled down her thighs. The dominance he was exerting was turning her on, and the rough way in which those hands that had been nothing but gentle before now treated her did just about the same. She cleared her throat when it felt dry, looking at nothing but him. "I want you, all the way, please." A growl rumbled through his chest, and his hand reached around her neck, shoving the side of her face flat against the bed. "I never thought you'd be asking for this much tonight. I guess I was wrong, but you'd better be careful of what you wish or rather beg for, Quinn, because the very moment you are mine and there will be no exception. That Geo should not even be a distant thought in your mind, and if there ever comes a time when you choose to go with him instead of me like that again, I will do it up in the ugliest way possible and these cheeks will be beautifully swollen." A shiver racked down Quinn's spine, and her eyes slithered shut when she felt his words were a threat, and yet they were music to her ears. Her green eyes rolled to the very back of her head and her toes curled into the mattress as he leaned down, resting his lips so close to her ears. "Don't relax yet, little red, I'm not even halfway in." Tears broke free from the corners of her eyes, her weak knees almost giving out when he released her neck, grabbing onto her red hair instead. He used the strands to pull her up, locking her body against his. "Now it's all in." At his words, a shiver racked down Quinn's spine. His shaft felt like it was touching her heart, so big, so stiff. I feel it all the way up to here." "It's weird, weird you say?" Zade kissed her neck, slowly moving his hips back and forth. "Just weird." "Weirdly good," she answered, her broken words riling him up even more. He'd wanted to see her like this vulnerable and helpless beneath him since the first time he finally saw her. He had known her scent, but her face had been a mystery to him. When she'd walked into the party, his eyes had searched for her, and what he'd found was a woman who stood confident and proud in the most beautiful gown on the floor. Her eyes were as vibrant as the forest leaves, and her beauty too stood out like the light of the sun. She'd not only captivated him, but everyone else. Since then, he'd wanted to ruin her, just like this. He'd wanted to know how high her moans could pitch, how his name would sound sinfully dripping off her lips, and it did not disappoint him. He had desired to know all of her, the parts that everyone knew as well as the parts she'd only show to him. This body, his hands had wanted to venture every section unceasingly. She'd looked pretty in that dress, but he'd known she'd look better without it on. And he confirmed it, her body was flawless, curvy in the right places. She wasn't just skin and bones, she was the epitome of perfection. Wrapping her hair around his hand, he pulled her head back, taking her swollen pink lips between his. The kiss was rough, full of desire and passion, and every cry that seeped through the warm recess of her mouth, he swallowed them. He'd liked other women during his times of loneliness, but none had turned him on like this, none had filled him with such passion, with such pleasure, none had fitted around him like the matching piece to his puzzle. He'd wanted to take his time tonight, to pleasure her completely, to learn her body. But he knew that he had already gone too far, for the shadow of that desire was preventing him from wanting to go beyond. The crave to claim her was far too strong for him to ignore. He hoped she could forgive him in the morning because he'd lost his way tonight. "Alpha Zade, goddess, it's not the goddess, little red, it's just me." Quinn looked over at him, her breaths as heavy as his. Her green eyes held insecure again, and with a sigh, he wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her against him. Just as I thought, every single aspect of you is perfection. Quinn shook her head, she wasn't perfection, he was. You are by far the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Waiting 9 years to find you was never a curse, it was a blessing. I already told you this, but I won't ever abandon you, no matter what happens, you will always be mine and I yours. I won't look at another woman, after all, no other woman can be you. Quinn looked at him with the most hopeful green eyes in the whole world. As long as you mean it. I do, he kissed her forehead. I mean it. Quinn woke up, enveloped in Alpha Zade's scent and in his arms. It was warm, the feeling of being alive again, was warm. She no longer felt like an abandoned wolf, she felt wanted again, enough. This man, he'd rebreathed life into her, with words, and with actions, he'd shown her that she was worth it. It didn't matter if Geo had turned his back on her, what mattered most was what she'd gained from his abandonment, and her gain was him, Alpha Zade. A man who seemingly kept his words, a man who knew exactly what he wanted, a man who was just that, a man. Why had she been so skeptical in the beginning? She'd felt the bond, she'd always felt that glimmer of attraction. Whenever he was near, that familiar sense of belonging would wash through her. So why had she been scared? He might have been an alpha, but he wasn't the same alpha that had broken her. His name was not Geo, it was Zade. Two different persons could never be the same. She regretted waiting this long to accept him, she regretted running away, if she hadn't, then this feeling of mirth would have found her long ago. Lifting her head, she looked up at him, accessing his face from such a close angle. He looked so different than he did last night, that ex-god now looked innocent, like a baby, peaceful and calm. A small smile twitched at the corners of her lips as she reached for the strands of hair against his forehead. This was the messiest she'd ever seen it, his looks were always well-groomed, but after last night, everything was a mess, including her. Every touch he'd laid against her skin, she still felt it, the hickeys lined all the way from her neck to the bottom of her belly and the memories of when they had become one, it all felt surreal. Combing his hair out of his face with a finger, her little smile grew wider. This handsome man was hers, from now until forevermore. Quinn hurriedly pulled her hand back when he stirred in his sleep, her eyes squinting shut the moment his fluttered open. Her arms stiffened around him when he pulled her closer, his voice coming out croaky. I saw you, Quinn, almost didn't, but I did. Quinn reluctantly opened her eyes, cheeks flushed. Sorry, she was embarrassed, and she didn't know what to say. He chuckled. Don't tell me you're still shy after what we did last night. Quinn shook her head. I'm not shy, I'm just awkward and happy. Zade smiled at her. Me too, not awkward, just happy. I mean I get to enjoy the rest of my vacation and I even get to spend it with you. Your trip here was a vacation. Sort of, but I mainly came here to claim this one stubborn girl as mine. Stubborn? Quinn laughed. Who could that be? Well, you know, it's that hot redhead, the one laying in bed beside me right now. So, in other words, it's me. Yeah, Zade smirked, reaching down to squeeze her cheek. "It's you." He leaned closer, lips taking hers between them in a short and savory kiss before he pulled away. He rolled on top of her, pulling at the sheets that hid her beauty away from him and burying his face in the crook of his neck. As he nibbled at the tender skin, his hand ventured across her chest to squeeze at the full and succulent flesh before making its way down her belly. Quinn stiffened beneath him, but she did not make a move to stop him, so he continued. Between her legs his hand went, but before he could go any further, a knock on the door interrupted him. Her father, it was him. "Quinn." He rolled off of her, sighing. He hadn't done much. Quinn on the other hand was close to panicking. She quickly sat up, eyes searching the room for her clothes. "Yes, Dad. Breakfast is ready, you and your company can come out." And then he walked away. Quinn flushed red. Last night while screaming to the heavens, she'd forgotten that she'd been in her father's house. She knew he heard, and she was ashamed. Shuffling off the bed, she looked at Zade, throwing his pants at him when she found it. "Get dressed." He sighed. "Let's finish what we started first. No, do you have no shame whatsoever?" Quinn opened her drawer, taking out a panty, and Alpha Zade walked up behind her, hugging around her waist. She could feel his heart on against her lower back, and a moan almost slipped past her lips because of that. "What's there to be ashamed of?" Quinn twisted around to face him. "Everything. Explain, because I don't get it. Am I supposed to be ashamed of making love to you?" "No, but nothing, it won't take long, just jerk me off, I promise I'll make you feel good too." Quinn's eyes dropped to stare at the hardness against her thigh, swallowing audibly. "Okay, but you have to be quick, we have to be quiet." "All right." Her hands shook as it wrapped around it, her fingers barely managing to close around such thickness. She knew she should have been adamant, she knew she shouldn't have agreed, but she couldn't deny that she wanted it too. Last night had been long, and yet she still hadn't had enough of him. A low moan slipped from his lips when she slowly started to stroke him, and he reached for her face, lifting it so he could kiss her. His plump lips were soft, but the fingers that probed between her folds were calloused. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.